In the modern game of Yugioh, there are thousands of different cards in the card pool, leading to an almost limitless amount of potential decks out there. With all these different potential strategies, how do you even begin to consider not only how to play them, but also counter them? My name is tcgsam, this is Yugioh 101, and in today's video, we're going to be covering the general playstyle of different types of decks out there so you have a better idea of what the game plan is with these types of decks. Not only will this give you general guidelines on how to play any deck in Yugioh, it'll also help you know how to counter any deck in Yugioh. Before we get to the content of today's video, I just want to let you know about CardTrader Zero as well as your playmat, which I have affiliate links for in the description below. If you've ever wanted to order cards from online, but have found that shipping costs were too exorbitant, then CardTrader Zero offers you a great solution to where you can have all those cards shipped out to you in one package, ultimately reducing your shipping costs. If you're also interested in getting your own custom playmats, tabletop mats, or card sleeves, then I recommend checking out your playmat for the highest quality products. Just by signing up using my affiliate links, you'll be helping to support the channel, which I greatly appreciate. Anyways, with that being said, let's just get back into the video. So, decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Generally fall under one of three main categories or somewhere in between. These categories are control decks, mid-range decks, and combo decks. Combo decks win by performing a flurry of combos that make it impossible for you to break through, whereas control decks slowly out-resource you in a mass advantage as the game goes on. In a nutshell, control decks want to prolong the game, combo decks want to end the game as fast as possible, and mid-range decks are somewhere in between with elements of both. But perhaps the best way to understand this is with examples of a few decks which I'll show in the next slide. At the time of recording, Cyberstorm Axis was the most recent set, so I'm going to be using decks around this time to give an example as to what each type of deck may look like. Starting from the control end of the spectrum, we have a deck like Labyrinth. Labyrinth, as you may know, plays a lot of trap cards and essentially seeks to gain advantage and out-resource you with said trap cards, while gaining advantage with their larger Lady Labyrinth monsters throughout the course of a game. Around the middle of the spectrum would be a deck like Pearly. Pearly doesn't necessarily put out a large board or try to prevent you from playing the game by slowing it down, but instead ending on one big boss monster in Expertly Noir. They have elements of control decks where they get a lot of resources through some of their spell cards like My Friend Purely, but at the same time they have some combo elements by being able to spit out essentially their entire hand and build a respectable board with a strong boss monster. Finally, on the combo end of the spectrum is a deck like Super Heavy Samurai, which aims to spit out multiple interruptions through their many one-card combos and prevent you from playing the game at all. Of course, most decks won't always be at these extremes and will fall somewhere in between both ends, and there are different builds of these decks that can change what type of deck it is, but the decks I mentioned were just for illustrative purposes only. So now you know what types of decks are out there, how do you actually beat them? Let's go over a quick few tips for each of them. First, we'll talk about how to beat control decks. We're going to start off with their game plan, which is to slow the game down and slowly out-resource you. In order to beat them, try to overwhelm them and win as fast as possible. Avoid one-for-one trades if possible, since a simplified game state where both players have very few cards tends to favor them more. You'll also notice that it's very difficult for a control deck like Labyrinth to come back from getting hit by a card like Evenly Matched or Harpy's Feather Duster, since they don't have as many cards that can single-handedly bring them back into the game, and thus cards that give you a positive card advantage in trades are generally very good against these decks. You'll be able to easily outpace them and win the game from there, most of the time after tempo has swung back into your favor. Next is how to beat mid-range decks. Their game plan is somewhat flexible, allowing them to adapt and play the role of either the control deck or the combo deck in most matchups. Thus, in order to beat it, I would suggest focusing on what your deck excels at. So for example, if your deck is a better control deck or a better combo deck, then try to win by sticking to your own game plan and forcing them to adapt to you. Since mid-range decks will usually have to make some sort of concession in either both or either of their combo or control elements, finding those weaknesses and exploiting them in addition to making sure that you stick to what your deck does best will give you the best chance of winning. Finally, we're going to talk about how to beat combo decks. Their game plan consists of trying to win the game as fast as possible and amassing overwhelming card advantage. In order to beat a combo deck, you're either going to have to outpace them somehow or try to slow the game down such that you're able to build up advantage over time. Since combo decks usually tend to lose steam as the game goes on, you'll have a better chance of winning the longer the game goes on, assuming your deck still has resources in a drawn out game. This is why cards like Floodgates, like Skill Drain, are typically very good against control decks because it slows the game down enough so that the control deck can catch up to the pace of the combo deck and take over the game from there. For example, Labyrinth played Skill Drain in order to beat the combo decks out there, since most combo decks don't have an easy answer to remove it. Finally, if you want to learn more about this topic, I'd heavily recommend Googling Who's the Beatdown and reading the articles on that, since it better explains how you can determine whether you should be playing the role of a control deck or a combo deck in your matchups. While this was a concept that was originally written in the context of Magic the Gathering, it has potent applications in Yu-Gi-Oh! As well. Ultimately, this concept of Who's the Beatdown is not something you need to know in order to play the game at a competitive level, but these small incremental advantages can make it so that you always have the slight edge over your opponent and the best chance of winning. Anyways, that's going to do it for me today. If you enjoyed the video, I ask that you please remember to subscribe to the channel. Only a very small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed, and by subscribing, you're letting me know that you're interested in the content that I'm making. If there's anything you think I missed in this video or that you want to see covered, let me know in the comment section below. With that being said, I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.